Morning, Jack.
Um, I will be back in uh, a half hour.
Okay.
Linda is going off on a cruise, and I'm helping her pack the car, etc. So I'll be back.
Okay. No rush.
Sam, are you there, Sam?
So,
Is it just you and me?
Jack was on briefly and then said he was helping Linda pack because she's departing on an excursion for the day. So he said he'd be
Ooh,
back at the bottom of the hour.
okay, cool.
In the meantime, I saw that you had a
How you
really
doing?
last weekend. I actually had a pretty interesting and really fascinating week that I will hopefully tell you about.
Well, what's preventing you from telling me about it?
Can't get 1,000 words out in, like a single second. I have to take time to do it.
Yeah, please. Well, I got time.
Okay. Do you recall that at one point I told you a story? I probably told it more than one time about how my son used to be an art major in college.
An art major, yes.
And that when he was a junior, he came to me and said, "Hey, all my friends are getting internships and, small jobs here and there and getting interviews, and there's no internships for art." And that was when I had a conversation with them that said, "Hey, you're in the middle of your junior year, but if you go do a STEM degree, at least a minor, then I'll pay for another year." So he went to school for 5 years, took my advice, and got a full CS major after 5 years and an art minor. And now he's working at Facebook and he's making more than I'm making ever. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now, my youngest Veronica is 11 years younger than Nick. She has always loved art. She's always spent tens of hours each week, probably more than that, probably, I don't know, 50 to 100 hours each week drawing. She just loves sketching and drawing. And when she was in high school, I got her involved in some music. She wanted to learn a few instruments. So, um, at one time it was violin, at one time it was ukulele, at one time it was piano, but nothing really ever lasted. But one of the teachers that she visited, who was actually my flute friend, from north of the island, introduced her to her neighbor across the street, a fellow named Tobin, who basically had a gig teaching high school kids how to learn JavaScript, which is a programming language.
Hmm.
And so he was just doing this, once a week or twice a week. I forget exactly when. This is like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And so she picked it up. And even though she didn't like programming a lot, she's a good student. So she actually did well in that class, well enough that Tobin, after about 2 years or 1 year, no, sorry, two classes, and each class was about 6 weeks long, said, "Yeah, if you want to continue, I'll hire you as a part-time assistant because his job, his business, is making websites for people." And
Hmm.
Veronica thought that was nice, but she didn't really want that. She didn't really like software, so over the years she kind of dropped it, and she's gone off to college. And 2 weeks ago, she just graduated with a math degree.
Ooh.
So about a week and a half or so ago, I went up and had a nice dinner with her and celebrated and gave her a very small gift and said, "Okay, Ronnie, what are you gonna do?" And she says, "Number one, she's gonna chill and then figure out what she wants to do." So I said, "Okay, how long do you want to chill?" She said, "2 weeks." So 2 weeks has gone by. So true to her word, again, something I like about Veronica, she started thinking. So 2 days ago, she sent me, no, actually about a week ago, she sent me and my ex-wife, said, please review my resume because she'd been working on her resume. And so I said, I'll get to it over the weekend. And then before the weekend got here, she sent me another question. I forget exactly what it was. Um, it was a pretty interesting question, and I better dig into it. But the reason that was interesting is because rather than writing a response back to it, by the way, I'm using the long form of the answer because I figure we have some time. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would just cut it short. Um, so I called her instead of writing a quick response. And at that point, she was just saying, hey, Dad, what can I do with a math major? Nobody's hiring math majors. Okay. And I gave her a talk, which I've had many times with many people, which is I've been in software for about 4 decades. And I've been a hiring manager and I've interviewed lots and lots of people. And the 2 degrees I look for, because they correspond to the best thinkers that I've ever hired, are mathematics degrees and physics degrees, even for software jobs. See, software fundamentally is not hard. You just got to learn a lot of details. But what is hard is finding people who actually can think and not just follow recipes and cookbooks
Hmm.
and fads. I hate people that just follow the fad. So I give her that speech about how, if somebody doesn't want to interview you because you have a math major, you don't want to work for that person. And so it was actually a very engaging conversation because then she started asking, okay, so what's math good for? So, I launched into part of my, hey, math is the language of relationships, and you got to understand why before you understand the what and the how, because otherwise the what and the how are going to just be bleeping boring to you. Like she said, she doesn't want to learn Python or she doesn't want to learn JavaScript because it's just boring. Okay. And I said, yeah, right. Don't even look at that stuff until you figure out what you want to contribute to and why you want to do something and how you want to contribute to the world or how you want to make yourself remembered to others. So we had a big talk about why. And the content of the talk is not super interesting. It's just that I love the fact that she's at a stage now where she's looking beyond just the school, the routine, the standard schedule, the immediacies of getting homework done, taking the next midterm, doing finals, walking the dog. And she's trying to figure out, okay, so she's got a life. It's going to be at least another, I don't know, probably 50 to 100 years. And she's going to figure out how does she want to spend that time. And so she at first went to her mom, my ex-wife. And surprisingly, when she asked those questions of my ex-wife said, ask your dad. So she called me and we had probably at least an hour conversation, maybe an hour and a half, that first call. And the very next day she calls me again because part of that first call was me saying, just keep an open mind. And she said, her next question was, how long should I wait before I start panicking and, really trying to figure out whether it's all working? And I said, give it a year. Don't get anxious or panicky or whatever until a year has gone by because she has the luxury of that. Okay. It's a
Mhm.
combination of me, a small part, my ex-wife who has resources, uh, my son who's actually doing quite well at Facebook. So with people around, and that's really why, families are so important socially, she could actually take some time. I didn't have that time when I graduated school. I knew my parents could not afford to just let me just chill for a year. Okay. So I thought I immediately had to go get a job. And that's what I did. But
Right.
she doesn't have that urgency. So I said, talk to your friends, talk to the people who've gotten jobs, ask them what they do, ask them if they enjoy it, ask them what their day is like. Ask them, whether they care about what they're doing or whether they're just doing it for the money. I actually would think it'd be awesome if she were open to talk to you and if you're open to talk to her, because you do a lot that you care about, and that's how you kind of structure your work as well. Okay,
Right. Right.
so you're a good example to kids and especially women.
Yeah.
So we then had the very next day we had another over 1 hour conversation where we talked about this and then the other thing. So I talked to her about how mathematics underpins the thinking, and the right questions come out of people who think.
Yeah.
Boring questions come out of people who don't think. How's the weather? Did the Seahawks win last week? What'd you do yesterday? Did you get shit faced? I hate those kind of conversations. But if somebody says, man, did you watch the Artemis launch yesterday? We're going back to the moon. Or if
Hmm.
somebody says, look at the latest stuff we're learning from the James Webb Space Telescope, and then start asking questions about, what is that going to tell us? What's really the, theories that we used to think that are just completely blown out of the understanding now that we have seen more of the universe than we ever have seen before. So I'm trying to get her to understand it's about thinking, and that's what math is trained person for, and that thinking adds value to any enterprise.
Right.
So we're going to talk again. We have time set up today where I might actually go and actually, sit across the table across dinner, and we have the next conversation. This would be the third straight day that she's asked me for advice, and I just said the only thing you got to worry about is be an open mind. I mean, sorry, have an open mind and just be committed to exploration for now. Don't even worry about, hey, am I going to go into growing pot, or I'm going to go into, taking care of dogs? Am I going to go flip burgers, or am I going to go to Wall Street? All those questions, just hold them open at the time. And this, I thought, was a time that I've been waiting for her entire life. Just like when my son came to me when he was a junior, he came to me and asked me that, what am I going to do with an art major, right? I've been waiting for that time. And this week, that time came with Veronica. So I'm really happy this week.
That's
Anyway,
great.
thank you for letting me tell the story because I just wanted to share that and say that to me is really cool. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. It's exciting
yeah,
when your kids, you can actually have an adult conversation with them, um, and think about the things that you'd always kind of wanted to tell them, but had to wait for the right moment, or
yeah,
the things that your parents never told you and that you had wanted to say differently.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's
my
great.
dad, he was first generation. My mom was first generation. They didn't know this country. They didn't know this culture. They didn't know
Yeah,
how the U.S. society worked. They didn't know how companies, worked. My dad was in academics. My mom was a doctor.
yeah,
So I didn't have that kind of conversation with them.
right.
So I had to learn I'm still learning things, that I should have known when I was like 16 years old.
And there's benefits, like you said, to thinking, to taking the time to actually ask these questions. It's so much more sustainable in the long run.
That's what I believe. In fact, thinkers are the only way that civilization is going to level up. And there's too
Hmm.
few thinkers. There's too many followers and too many let's just get alongers.
Yeah.
And we're just going to get along until the earth is just a smoking hole in the ground.
Well, not too many people have the articulation, the capabilities, the capacity to even think. Or some of them don't even have the desire.
Yeah,
There are
because
some people who actually do. But even if you do, just think for a little bit, for just a little bit, even thinking, you know, small bits and pieces at a time. It's a habit that actually, for somebody who doesn't think, I'm imagining that it's very difficult for them to think. And I don't know, because I actually love thinking. Um, but if you have that daily habit, I think that would be a very good contribution to the world
yeah,
to at least give yourself some time to think,
yep, yep.
just a few, you know, a few minutes a day, even. That's great. I'm happy for you. That's
Yeah, I
exciting.
thought that was really cool. You know who I
Yeah.
think does a good job of thinking?
Who?
4-year-olds.
4-year-olds?
Yeah, they keep asking why, 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 right? And then parents get exasperated because after the fifth or sixth why, they can't figure it out anymore.
Yeah.
And kids pick up on that exasperation, and they don't want their parents exasperated. So over time, they stop asking. I think that's really sad.
Yeah, I know.
Almost every 4-year-old starts by asking why. The standard question is, why is the sky blue?
I can't wait for my kids to go back to the Y again.
Mhm.
If I may, because it kind of coincides with what you just talked about. Next weekend is not only Damien's 18th birthday, but it is also the day before, on the 11th, is Bruin Day. And so meaning me and Kenny and his girlfriend and Max, we're going to UCLA to participate in Bruin Day. We're going to learn
Mhm.
about, we're going to tour the campus. We're going to go to the financial aid office. We're going to check out the dorms, of course, like look at the food halls and just kind of see the life
Mhm. Mhm.
that Damien's going to be living for at least the next 4 years at minimum,
Mhm.
hopefully, hopefully, right? Um, and so I'm so excited about that because I had never had the opportunity to go to a university of my own choice. And had I had that same enthusiasm or that same support from my parents, or that same drive, within myself, and from my friends that I hung out with, I think my life would have turned out very differently. But I mean, I digress. I love my life regardless. I'm just really excited that he has this opportunity. There's like a ton of clubs. Um, he has agreed to dorm at least for the first year, and I fully support that. I've been sending him some scholarships through TikTok that I've been looking at. I'm like, hey, check this out.
Mhm.
I've been joking to him about how he needs to utilize, you know, um, being raised by a single mom,
Mhm.
and to start using his like um, BIPOC background as a means to like get a little bit more money so that he could pay for all of it. But I'm just really excited that he's, in that atmosphere. And Max actually had academic counseling, which didn't go as well as I thought, but I was happy that we established academic counseling and we sort of kind of have a plan. So that has transpired this week. Um, and it's just really interesting to see, my kids' lives. Last night, Damien actually went to, he drove, and it just, again, blows my mind. I'm like, oh my God, he's driving. He drove to go pick up a friend in Santa Paula, his childhood friend that used to live, not even a block away from us in Somis. And then so he picked up his friend in Santa Paula, and then he drove to Camarillo to meet his other childhood friends, the guys that he went to school with for 8 years. And then the cool part was another friend, like from even before he went to school, joined them because they happened to have the same mutual friends. And this kid, like, it was just, it just makes my heart so happy to know that they're reconnecting with one another, that their lives are taking a different turn. And even though I want to be a part of this, I'm not going to be a part of this. And I hope that my kids turn around and come back to me and hopefully find a safe space for them to ask why, you know? And hopefully I can share and impart my wisdom and my experiences without leaving trail crumbs about it.
Mhm.
Like I try to do with them. So it's like it's so exciting. It's really exciting just to see the younger generation, and then to reflect on not only like your relationship with them as they were growing up, but also the person that they're becoming and the person
Yes.
that they have the potential to become.
Yes.
And also the people that we are now too. I've had time to reflect on my life, not just through my kids, but this entire week. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I took off this entire week, for spring break. I was going to go to Hawaii. It didn't happen financially.
I
And I
remember.
wanted the entire week to just chill out, right? And do what I want to do. And I did. I did what I wanted to do, um, to my financial capacity, that is. There's a lot of stressing. There was a lot of, well, not too much stressing. There was stressing. There was lots and lots of relaxing. There was spending a little bit of time, with my son. There was spending a lot of time in the backyard,
Hmm.
spending a lot of time actually writing. So I started to write, um, this kind of like book that I had started to write a long time ago. Okay, I'll back up. There's this application. It's called Storyworth, and somebody had introduced it to me in September, I think. And what it is you pay like $39, and you write like your life stories. You get like these prompts every week about like, what was your first car? Um, what was your, what was that?
That's my dog. Sorry.
It's like, what the hell was that?
They want breakfast. It's not even time for breakfast yet. Hey, it's early.
No, so
Stop it.
cute.
There's two of them.
Here's your reminder from Sam.
Sorry.
It's
They're
okay.
being a disruptive force.
Yes. So anyway, back to Storyworth. So what you do is you select all of these questions to prompt you every week, and you write, your answers or your story on a weekly basis. And so I decided to sign up for it because I was like, yeah, let me write something about my life and myself, and then I'll probably have it, published. What they're going to do is they're going to bind it and publish it, and then you get your book. But I'm going to do it during Christmas. And so when my father passed away, when he got really sick, I stopped writing because I just really didn't have the motivation to do so. Looking through my life was kind of painful, knowing that every day of my life he was in it at least. So now this week, I told myself, regardless of my tears or how I feel or whatnot, I am going to write every single day. And I started to do that. So anyway, it's been really nice to just kind of be able to look back, and I hope that I can have the same conversation that you had with Veronica with my two kids.
That is a cool discipline.
Yeah, right.
I used to joke when I was younger. When I was, I think 14 is when I started journaling. And it's a sad reason why I stopped, actually. I stopped when I was, I don't know, mid 20s and maybe like 22, 23, 24, something like that. And to this day, I still think this is one of the things that is hard to forgive. Um, my ex-wife started reading my journals.
Oh,
I wasn't locking them up, and we had conversations. I said, "Hey, journal," and she said, "Yeah, I'm not going to read them. They're private, whatever." But she started reading them, and that's why I ended up stopping writing journals.
yeah,
But I do it online now
yeah.
in different ways. But that's one of the pieces of advice I gave Veronica the last couple of days is to start writing a journal about her thoughts, her questions, the things she's learning, the people she's talking to, the areas she's starting to explore, the skills that she needs to develop. I asked her, and she said, "Yeah, that's strange because just 2 days earlier she started journaling on her own."
Nice. There you go.
I'm really looking forward to your experiences having those talks, Damien and Max. I mean, actually, you do have more conversations with them, it seems, than I had with my kids when they were growing up. Because you tell me about questions they're asking you that indicate that you guys have those conversations. But you did
I'm
say,
really glad.
what?
I'm really glad too. I'm really glad that
Hmm.
I started to have these conversations with both of them.
Right.
Even though I want to look for a new job and I'm going to get a new job, um, I do have to be very grateful to United Parents for giving me the ability to talk to my sons.
Hmm.
It was through the promotion of their workshops or their partner workshops that I was able to talk to my kids.
I'm sure you soaked up a bunch of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I became the mom I'd always wanted to be at that point.
You know how many people cannot say that?
I know.
I still can't say I want to be, I'm the dad that I wanted to be. I'm trying to do it, but I still can't really say it.
Well, you're becoming the dad you want to be, right?
I agree. And now we're both channeling Barry.
Was he the dad that he wanted to be? Or
I
he didn't have any kids,
don't,
huh?
he didn't talk much. I don't think he had kids. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Okay. So how are we channeling Barry?
Because Barry was always talking about becoming.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to agree with that. Becoming.
Well, becoming, I think, is natural. That's basically, the course of what we call time. But he ascribes more to it than that.
May I add to Barry, to what
Yes,
Barry loved to talk about becoming?
yes.
I think if you're intentional about becoming and you ask elevated questions about becoming, I think that intentionality turns into manifestation.
Bingo. I like that.
It's not too woo woo for you.
No, in fact, look, there are other ways of saying this, right? You become what you think about. James, what's his name, way back in the early 1900s. Even Buddha, or even Lao Tzu. Your thoughts become your actions become your consequences. Those become your habits, and over time that becomes your character, and then over time that becomes your life.
Yeah.
Nightingale, what was his name? I forget his first name. Nightingale said the same thing way back in the early 1900s. Hey, Jack, Kayla and I were talking about manifestation, thinking, and how that, leads to manifesting in life. And
Manifest,
yes,
like manifest
manifestation.
destiny.
No, it's basically like, visualize what you want to be, and then organize your life that way and take the actions accordingly. And pretty soon, that's the life you live. Well, that's a
Well,
short-term
that's
form
how I
of
beat
saying it.
leukemia. That's how I beat
Exactly.
leukemia.
That's right.
This
So,
is the
and I
point.
was telling you, and I was also telling Kayla, very, very few people can do that.
Hmm.
Very few people actually, think and put two thoughts and then three thoughts and then four thoughts and then five thoughts together. Most people stop after two because it doesn't make sense. Okay. But few people can string it together and then realize, oh, for this consequence, I have to take this action now.
That's the
That's a
point.
very hard step.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And I don't know what in childhood does that, but I haven't I have a personal analysis myself, and that is I grew up skinny and short and cross-eyed, and so I was everybody's punching bag. And so I basically learned to use my brain rather than my brawn because I didn't have any. And I think that's that's what forged me into steel, the way the Marines say.
Anyway, the reason that came up is Kayla was talking about manifesting in context of, I think, United Parents and other aspects. So Kayla was in the middle of telling that story. Kayla, would you like to continue that story?
Well, Sam and I were talking about our week, and Sam was just, you know, talking about how Veronica is starting to ask him some really good questions. She's starting to think about her life and starting to be curious about what to do with her life as an adult, from what I understand. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. And so we were talking about how exciting it's been to reflect about back at our children in terms of parenting and in terms of like, stages of parenting, stages of their life. And, I was saying how it's reflective of my life too. And Sam chimed in too. Um, and I was telling him a similar, a kind of sort of similar situation with my kids this week is on the 11th, I'm going to be going to UCLA. I'm so excited for Bruin Day. And Bruin Day is when, the first year students get to tour the campus and find out about financial aid and go, look at the clubs and look at the dorm and go look at the food halls and the city halls and, all of the buildings. And so anyways, I'm super duper excited about that. But I was telling Sam how I wished, or not wished, but how I can't wait for my kids, and hopefully they'll do this, to ask me the whys, to so that I could give them a little bit of my wisdom, and everything that I've learned and my experiences instead of trying to drop crumbs of my experiences to them. Because they're not quite there yet of asking me why. They're in their own little world growing up. But I was also telling him about how, um, well, he was saying that my kids actually talk to me more than his kids talk to him around this age. And I attribute that to working with United Parents. And so growing up, I had always wanted to be a certain type of parent. Okay. Some could even say that I wanted to be kind of like a hippie parent. But and this is the story I did not tell Sam. My very first boyfriend, his mom was like a total hippie, and she was a very deep thinker. She introduced us also to things like organic food and, you know, just honoring the earth. I think she's part Native American, and that's why, she was a very amazing, interesting woman. She was also a single mom, and she was raising the kids after their divorce. So, anyways, I had wanted to always be a mom like her because her kids were so enamored with her. They could talk to her very easily. She could talk to me. I used to sleep over the house, and she would be okay with it. Whereas my parents like talked at me, and they thought I was stupid, or at least, they made it seem like I was stupid, and I could never even have a boyfriend like within 50 yards of the house. And so I was very fascinated with how there is an actual relationship with my first boyfriend, and his mom. So I had always wanted to become that type of mom where I actually have a relationship with my kids, where I know who they are, where they feel safe to come with me with their problems. Um, they feel safe to make a mistake with me. And I'm still learning that. I mean, I was telling Sam, as much as I want to leave United Parents and I'm looking for another job, I do have to attribute that to United Parents because, you kind of grow up, like I grew up with what I had, and what I had in terms of parenting as a teenager, or me being a teenager, it wasn't really conducive to my relationship with my parents. They just did not have that style of parenting that made me open up to them. And so I was a total rebel. And then you just carry that to your adult life too. And um, anyways, to wrap this up, I always had a goal in mind, like this is the person that I want to become. And as fate would have it, I was able to take advantage of the workshops and stuff that United Parents had for parenting. And I was able to turn that around just in time to, to have a relationship with my oldest son. And so here we are today, where, last night he hung out with some childhood friends. It just blows my mind that he's driving from city to city now, um, to where I can support my youngest son, and we have like a very close relationship. And then Sam and I were talking about manifesting that, becoming. Well, he said that Barry was the person who talked about becoming, and that's when I brought up manifesting. Anyway, thanks for listening.
So that's pretty much a recap of what happened while you were gone, Jack, other than the specific details of my conversations with my daughter.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
It's there's a parallel to mine with my kids, though my son basically uh, was ruptured by the divorce. He did not see that coming. And my daughter was fine. Um, but my son finally gave me a hint as to where I was making a mistake. He said, Dad, why do you always lecture to me? And that just changed everything because now when he actually comes to me and asks all kinds of things that he wouldn't have before, my answer is always, well, I can't tell you what to do, but here's what I'd do if I was in your shoes. And then he listens. The one from my son that, well, you're being recorded, so I won't tell that. At any rate, my daughter is basically the dynamo that organizes family Zooms and all kinds of things. And she's just finished a manuscript for a novel, uh, basically sci-fi fantasy novel that I think is literally stunning. I did, I knew she could write, but this is truly an amazing work. But what I did with both of my kids was when they would come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, I just found out that X equals Y." And I would say, "How do you know that?" And force them to dig deeper.
You know, let me know if the audio is not going well. But one of the things that Kayla and I had touched on also was that over time, in my opinion, kids have lost the habit of asking why. And to
Mm.
me,
Yep, that's what happens. School knocks it out of them.
it's not just school, parents do as well.
I suppose
Because,
it's parents, but it's butts and seats at school. Sit down, shut up, and listen to the lecture.
yeah, I get that. But I was recalling for Kayla that one of the ages I really enjoyed in my kids and other people's kids was around the age of 4. Because that's when they can string sentences together. That's when they know they're unique individuals, different from their parents, different from other kids. That's when they're looking around at the world trying to make sense of it. And they get into these fun games where they're just asking strings of why. And over time, parents get frustrated because they
Yep.
can't answer why. And
Yep.
over time, the kids sense that the parent is frustrated, so they stop asking why because they don't want to see their parents frustrated. That to me is sad.
Well, with my kids, we never stop them from asking why.
But do you understand, though, that the general case is the parents don't feel comfortable saying, I don't know, or let's explore, or isn't that
But
fascinating?
that's exactly how we handled it. We would say, let's explore. You've pushed me beyond my limits. Let's go find out. And that's where you teach them how to use a library and how we didn't have online stuff in those days. And
Yeah, you did. It was called the Dewey Decimal System. Sorry.
well, you had the Dewey Decimal System, but you didn't have Google. You had to go to the card catalog at the local library and look up. And I would tell them to look up, how do you figure out which subject you're interested in?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd spend a lot of time in the card catalog at the
So,
library.
Jack, let me ask you a question then, okay? Let's say even when you were growing up, with other young parents, when you were a young parent, or Kayla, when you're now a young parent, or me and I'm an old parent, how many other families did you see foster that level of continued exploration, continued inquisition, as opposed to, hey, I can't deal with it now. I got to get dinner ready, or I can't deal with it now because people are coming over, or kind of I got to go to work, or I've had a long day. I just want to watch TV. How many families do you think are in each of those categories? And I'm not faulting families. I'm just saying this is the way society has set things up.
Yep,
Mhm.
I actually agree. And I experienced it in the parents of my kids' peers. It was some of them were even ahead of me, but some of them were so far behind, I just couldn't understand how their kid functioned.
Mhm.
I mean, we had a parent who came in and yelled at the third grade teacher that she was letting the kids play checkers and chess, and that was not schoolwork.
Wow, that
So,
sucks. Oh my gosh.
her kids were really suffering. My daughter ended up beating the school principal in checkers. I I taught her I played a zillion games of checkers with her, and it did not, she was an extremely fast learner, um, and began to realize that one of the things I was doing was defending the back row. And so she started defending the back row and she got harder to beat. And so then she went off to a checkers playoff at her grammar school, and her kid, the principal came in and played her, and she waxed him. He came to me giggling. He says, "My God, she's good."
Wow, that's amazing.
She was the logical one. My son was the artist.
As you say that, I'm trying to think, let's see, which of my kids is the logical one, which is the artist? They're all artists. But yet, Nick has managed to pick up enough quote unquote technical side to be a meta now for 6 years.
Oh, that's good news. Yes.
But yeah, for each kid, their first love was art.
Well, I, the thing was is that my son in second grade, um, the Bach Kai Festival in Marysville came up to the school and said, "We want to see, submissions for the cover of the Bach Kai Festival. It's the year of the pig." And my son's drawing of the pigs was on the cover of their yearbook
Nice,
for that.
Wow,
nice.
great.
And so then my wife took them to Dinosaur Park in Colorado, where you hike up a hill and there's dinosaur bones all laying on the ground, and you're not allowed to pick them up. And you get to the top, and then they have a competition at the top of the hill to draw the best dinosaur. And my son won the competition. My,
Mm.
my daughter came in second. Hers was good, but nothing like what he drew. He's now fundamentally a graphic artist in games. And the way that came to be was I had a really good year in the stock market, uh, with the options I had from a company I was working for. So I bought him a pretty high-end computer, and he promptly found Mario and other stuff on online and downloaded it and started playing it. I walked into his room one day and I said, "Why are you playing Mario?" And he turned in his chair and he says, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Why don't you write your own damn game?" He said, "Can I do that?" And it was like, oh my God, he doesn't feel empowered to do whatever he wants. And I said, "You can." And that launched a career that is pretty amazing.
Isn't it fascinating that we can pinpoint specific conversations that turn entire perspectives around and turn entire lives around?
It's children are not empowered. That's an issue.
Well, they are, and then they're not, and then they might become again.
Well, okay, in today's world where you don't allow your kids out on the street lest they get stolen or raped or whatever, um, in my day, Jesus Christ, we roamed the whole streets of Burbank on foot, on bicycle, on whatever, all day long. And we'd, stand out on the front lawn throwing a frisbee across the street to the neighbor kid across the street
Yeah.
and scare the drivers when would come by too close and that kind of thing. I mean, we just kicked ass. We were totally empowered. I took a 2x4 and uh, some roller skates, and I turned it into a scooter that you stand up on and go down the street down the sidewalk on the scooter. Um, we just did shit. My kids, we had to give them the opportunity to do shit, but in a completely limited way. They lived with us on a kind of a horse ranch, and we were breeding dogs. So my daughter uh, actually took one of our dogs into the show ring and won a prize. Um, then we got him into Taekwondo, and that opened my son up completely.
That I'm glad to hear with Taekwondo. I know that all three of us have had similar experiences. I know Kayla's done capoeira with her kids. I got to brown stripe and I got both the older kids into wushu as well as Taekwondo. And Veronica, of all four of us, is the only one who actually did it till she got a black belt.
Oh no, that's really good.
Yeah.
My kids dropped out as they got into college, but uh, I think that they were both brown belts. My daughter was nowhere near as tall as all the other kids, and so when she would swing and do the kick, you know where the foot landed.
Mhm.
Very inconvenient for the guys. They got really afraid of sparring with her.
Well, it's good training for later on in life.
Well, it is. And my son, they put boxing gloves on them and crash helmets, and they had them spar. And um, he was sparring with a little Hispanic kid that was rather aggressive and kept hitting my son in the face. And just as the sensei was not looking, because his sensei from Korea was there adding another notch to his black belt. He wasn't looking, and my son lashed back and knocked the kid out cold. I got a phone call from the sensei that evening. The kids were at a dance, school dance, and I got a phone call, and he said, I think it's good that John now knows that he can do it if he needs to.
So we were talking about kids and conversations with kids and key conversations with kids, which is, hey, by the way, Kayla, the book that you're writing,
Uh-huh.
cool place to put some of these things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kayla, I did not know you were writing a book.
Oh well, it's not really like a book where I would publish it for other people to purchase and read. It's actually just for me and my family.
Ah,
Yeah. It's prompted through an app called Storyworth.
got it.
And Yeah, yeah. So what's been wonderful about that is um, I am tapping back into my ability to write. I mean, really write. Are you any of you writers?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what I'm about to describe to you may be familiar, but when I get into the zone, I almost want to call it kind of like, okay, I'll just describe it. When I'm writing, I feel like time doesn't exist.
Yep.
And I also feel like I'm channeling something. It's like I can actually see a different picture that's not my own, different characters that I've made up. I can hear them. I can describe where they're at. I can give them feelings that, you know, I've experienced, but different, or or situations that I've never experienced, but that's how it would be. But it's even more than that. And so anyhow, I when I was writing, I forgot what I was writing about, but it was early in the morning when my brain's the at the its best. I just went to writing. An hour and a half went by that fast, and about 6:30 or something is when I was like, oh shoot, I kind of snapped out of it, and it was still kind of dark, and I'm like, oh no, I need to turn the lights on because it's nighttime now. And I was like, wait a minute, it's not nighttime. It's actually morning. I don't need to turn on the lights. I need to open the curtains. That's how in the zone I was, because like time completely escaped me. So much so where I didn't even know like if it was morning or the evening, at least for a moment. So
There was
that's
a
the part.
there was a whole book written on that phenomenon.
Ah, nice.
Well,
I love that. It's almost like, to me, it reminds me of, how runners describe as runners high.
Yes.
It's just like something completely indescribable that, only if you've been there, you would know what that is.
No, I've
And I
been
love that. That's my
in
first love before dancing.
programming will do that to me as well as writing. And I've
Yeah.
some authors describe it as what happens is the characters in the book start talking to them.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you're a real writer. You're in the zone. That's the way real big time authorship goes. When you create a fabric and the fabric starts telling you what to do next, takes a life of its own.
Yeah. That's why I feel like I'm channeling. The best way to visually describe it, if I were to ever look at myself, is I always feel like there's something from above that just like the beam that goes down onto me and goes through my body and onto my fingers, and that's you know what I write. That's how I see it too.
Well, I experience it periodically and not so much anymore. I'm too old, but I experience it when I set out to write a program, and I'll start writing the program and I won't stop for a couple of hours, and the amount of shit I got done in that short time is pretty stunning.
Yeah. I have to thank you, Sam, for reminding me, because I think a couple of weeks ago we were talking about something and you brought up Max and how Maxwell said, why don't you just quit your job and become a writer?
I remember that. Yes.
I was like, that's what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to write every single day this week.
Well, you can't write just for the family if you're going to quit your job. You got to write for a publisher and the whole game. But
Maybe
you
so, maybe no.
look, your life story would make a good you could fictionalize your life story into a fictional novel and go into parenting and all manner of shit, and it would be valuable out there on the market.
Hmm.
A little bit of feedback on that. I think that's always possible. But this first step that Kayla's doing for herself and her family can lead to all kinds of things.
Of
And
course.
we don't need to even visualize that nth step yet. I mean, I did not say yes when you said, "Are you writers?" Because I don't write prose, but I write in outlines. I write in brains. I write in voice. I write in AI. So I'm creating quote unquote content, quote unquote, but I'm not writing in the classical sense. So that's why I didn't necessarily say yes when you said, "Are you a writer?"
Well, I'm a writer, but mostly of nonfiction technical reports.
LaTeX?
No, I never learned law tech. Look, I didn't come up through the college game with command line and all that bullshit. I my first experience was punch cards and Fortran.
Yeah, writing is my first love. And if I want to go deeper, my imagination is also my first love. If you want to really pinpoint it to something, is this imagination. And I can tell you where that also was born out of. It was born
That
out
was going
of
to
my
be my
sister.
question. Yes, where was that born?
So my sister, when we were kids, encouraged, when I was a child, and meaning me and my cousin, um, she loved reading books, and she encouraged us to read Little House on the Prairie. Pretty sure you guys are familiar with
Yeah.
that children's series. Yeah. So, and then it was also my uncle, my great uncle, was a songwriter, and he loved telling us stories. He would talk about like, and the funny thing is, his stories were about like um, racism, and so he's telling us kids, we're kids, right? And he's talking about how these racist things happen to him, but he said it in a way that wasn't frightening. You know, it was kind of like, this is racism and this is what happened. And then he turned it around and kind of laughed about it. Like, he was talking about his principal, and his principal's name was Boogerine. So his name was Boogerine, and how, like, his principal was racist, and he was also kind of a naughty kid. And Boogerine pulled him out of the classroom and, like, smacked him in the butt for being a naughty kid. And so, anyways, he would tell me things. He would tell us things like that. I remember now. All of that's weird. You talk about all these white women that he would court. That's what he called it. He would court them, or he would, like, date them, and how people threw shit at him, or like they threatened his life because he was dating white women. But he just said it in a way that just made us like go, wow, that's very curious. That's crazy. As opposed to my dad, unfortunately, he also experienced racism, both in the Navy and then also, while living here in the United States too. So, anyways, that's where a lot of my imagination is born from, these stories that were, given to me either by encouragement or just by direct storytelling. In fact, one of the things that I am trying to manifest is to be able to get into an organization or a job that would combine all of the things that I absolutely love together: culture, imagination, traveling, storytelling, helping people. That is the kind of profession that I really desire and that I could probably stick with for the rest of my life. So I'm trying to manifest that.
You know, I like this topic of manifestation. I find it curious, however, that some people call it woo-woo. To me, it's not woo-woo at all. There's a lot of sense behind it. Going back
Explain yourself.
thousands of years.
Yeah.
The way I referenced it earlier was what you think about affects what you do and how you feel. How you feel and what you do affects people around you and affects the consequences of those actions, of those relationships. So over time, those become habits. Those become a pattern that you start to repeat. And over time, that begins to form your character. And that basically determines, hey, Gaia, no, don't do that. Don't drink that. No, 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 sorry. And that then becomes your destiny. And people have known this for at least 5,000 years, that it's been written down. So the people that call it manifestation these days and attribute it to woo woo or downloading from the universe, I don't know. You don't need to have that woo woo interpretation to understand manifestation, in my opinion. Over.
I love it.
So being able to direct one's thoughts and not just sit in, oh, this is bad, I'm depressed, nothing good ever happens to me. Why is the universe against me? Why is the stock market acting against me? How come nobody likes me? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can just watch those thoughts, but you can also construct and decide to think different thoughts. And that takes a conscious choice. Most people don't make that conscious choice because they don't understand that they're capable of doing it. They think that those initial negative thoughts are them. That's their identity. But it's not. Those are just idle thoughts that come and go. And that's why meditation is so key. Meditation lets you understand that. Was it Viktor Frankl or someone else who said, between what happens to you and what you do, there's a gap. And that gap represents your choice. You have that choice. Most people don't understand that. And the quality of the choice is determined by your imagination, which is, of course, affected by what you perceive, what you've previously thought. All of that affects imagination because it's imagination that comes up with the choices that you could choose from. And if you don't have enough imagination to think of a good choice, then your imagination and your past and your education is incomplete. I still haven't really had that conversation with my kids yet. I still hope to have that conversation with my kids soon.
This is what you should put on TikTok.
Wow. Every week, I'm getting the message, Kayla. See, I don't think of myself as particularly, anybody that somebody else would want to listen to. But I appreciate that you think I have, things that I could potentially share that other people might care about.
I mean, don't you think so, Jack? Like, I feel like that, you know, you, Sam, have a lot of things that people would want to listen to.
I agree with that. Sam has his own bent on life, as I do and as you do. Um, and those are important to me.
Not too many people can articulate it, though, you know? I think Sam has a gift of articulating it concisely.
Well,
I
it always amazes me that people who fundamentally were born in a different country have such enormous command of the King's English. It's just amazing to me.
What'd you say?
We're talking about you, Sam.
Oh, shut up. Enough about me. You guys talk about me.
Well, I just love how you don't have too many like, what are those words they call it? Filler words, like the and the ends and the buts and the, long pauses. Like your cadence is actually really nice too. That's like Sam, you really should just like give talks. And I'm not just talking about TED Talks either.
I do appreciate that acknowledgement, Kayla. I really do. See, part of me says I don't consider myself successful. So I don't consider myself somebody that anybody else would really, want to listen to. So that's why I don't really put myself out there. I have the, horse runs away attitude. Is it good? Is it bad? Don't know.
I'm an advocate
Sincerely.
for people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no,
I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no. Please.
Now, I was saying I'm an advocate for people. Um, Sorry, my dogs are barking, and I'm trying to articulate what I like, what's kind of in my heart. Um, oh, sorry. I'm just waiting for the dogs. Okay. Um, for whatever reason, my words are escaping me. So give me a moment. But just I'm resting on that word advocacy and an advocate for people. So I'll get back to you guys on that. My words are escaping me, but it's like totally in my heart and it's on the tip of my tongue. Unfortunately, I don't have your gift, Sam, of being able to articulate well and
No, I deeply
quickly.
appreciate your advocacy on my behalf. I really do. I've not experienced a lot of that in my past. Jack has on several occasions, other people have, but very few. And I appreciate those who do.
Okay, and now I have now I know what I want to say. I'm an advocate for people's voices. I really think everybody has something of value to contribute. And if you gave them the opportunity and the platform and the space and the idea, and not so much the idea to where like, oh, here's an idea for you, here's what you could use. It's almost like bringing it out of them. I feel like it, it's like how amazing we would be and how we would level up if everybody was able to see that their voice and it matters. They've got like a lot to contribute to. Like I have a lot to contribute. I have to say that. I'm not just tooting my own horn and trying to be super conceited, but yeah, I've had to also tell myself that this past week when I'm jobs hunting. Like I've got a lot to contribute to, but it's really what I choose. Knowing what my gifts are and being confident in that. As long as it comes from a place, an elevated place, where my purpose is helping people and, not anything that's low level like consumption or
I like
rooted
the
in
way you put that.
capitalism.
Here's another thing that I've run across. I forget exactly who said this, but he said, Einstein, Hawking, those guys were geniuses, undoubtedly, right? They discovered things about the universe nobody's ever seen before. But somewhere out in the desert in Sudan, or someone in the forests of Africa, or somewhere in the hills in South America, there could be an equally bright person, undeveloped, because they're busy trying to figure out what they're going to eat next day.
Yeah, yeah.
And those people haven't been given a chance for their genius to be exposed to the world. So your advocacy for people's voices includes recognition of that and letting those voices bubble forth.
We have to remove that place of judgment too. And I think that's where that stems from as well. I'm reading a book. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the chapter that I just read talked about, it just kind of went back to the journals of one of the settlers, of the early settlers here in the United States as they were observing the natives. And when they were harvesting wild rice, what they discovered is the natives would only harvest it for about 4 days. And then after that, they would stop, and there was like more rice to be harvested, right? And so in the journals of the settlers, they're like, yeah, the natives are wasteful and they're lazy. They attribute it to laziness and waste. But they never had like the natives never had the opportunity to show the settlers like the value, the wealth of actually leaving that
Hey,
there so
Tatami,
that
no.
the rice can reseed and that other creatures can benefit from that, adding to the overall wealth, where you don't take so much. And so that place of judgment, it really is unfortunate, um, because you then have lost the opportunity to learn something extremely valuable and highly sustainable for the rest of the world. And so, when I lived in Costa Rica, I always had this notion that like an ant has so much to contribute to society. Yes, it's an ant, right? And it was just when I went to Costa Rica and I went on these like wonderful hiking trips, I would see like the leaf cutter ants. They were so amazing. Just like, single file line following one another with the leaf over their head. It was just so fascinating to see. And I'm like, see, I told you, even an ant has its place in the world. Like, look at the amazing things they're doing.
You know, by no means am I demeaning any particular minority, but it seems like it takes such ugliness and such obviosity for us to realize that in the United States. Who do you think works in restaurants? Who do you think does construction jobs? Who do you think picks the fruit and the vegetables? Who do you think grows this and that? How many, and I'm going to say it, white people have gone to take those jobs of those minorities that have been deported? I didn't see a rush. I didn't see a stampede. I didn't see prices remaining stable because all those jobs got filled by people who were looking for those jobs, but they were taken away by minorities. No, prices have gone skyrocketing.
My first wife worked at a Vons supermarket, and she said that some of her customers believed that the meat was grown in the back of the store.
We're not going to level up, Jack. We're leveling down.
Well, it's just look. I'm doing the SenseCraft thing not because there's 50% of the people who are stupid enough to vote for Trump, but because some of those 50% can learn how to think clearly. Just some of them, not all of them. So
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I
it's
thought you
only
had.
a matter of time before, and we have to actually start it in the classroom for children. That's where it needs to start.
Yes, exactly. Bingo.
You know, it's funny. I actually had a conversation with my oldest son about teachers. I was asking him if he's going to be like a valedictorian or something. Like, what are the criteria for that? I forgot what he said. He said he's probably going to be is that a salutatorian? I don't
Kayla,
know.
are you far from your microphone?
Oh, can you hear me?
Barely.
This is barely. Oh, you know what? I'm in an area where there's lots of wind. Maybe that. How
You
about
sound
this?
like you're
Is it
far
better?
from your microphone. A little
How about
bit.
this? Better, better.
Yes, 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 it is better.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I'm close to the Wi-Fi. And I was talking to my son about like his grades and everything. And you know, he said that he probably has overall a 3.9, but I think his weighted grade is a 4.3. I don't know how any of that works, but I said, yeah, I saw that you have a couple of B's. And he said, yeah, you know, he had a couple of B's. And I said, what um, subjects were they, may I ask? And he was all like, oh, yeah, English. And I'm all, what? You had a B in English? It always blows my mind. I'm all, but your mom is a writer. But he said it was because he hated his English teacher and she sucked.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah. And I'm all, okay. So, you know, because I'm experiencing the same thing with math, with Max. He hates his math teacher. Now he switched, thank God. And he hated his English teacher. Thank God that's, you know, being switched. And I'm hoping and praying he could finish, you know, the school year where he doesn't have to repeat, you know, do too much summer school because he already failed one class. He had a D in his English class, and that still makes me really sad. So, when you were talking about like, you know, it has to start from kids, I agree with you. But we also have to be mindful of the chicken, right? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know, which worthy adults can be on board with this to foster that same curiosity that Sam was talking about for our kids and encourage them to keep asking the questions, the elevated questions of why.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Because fuck these teachers. Some of them suck. Holy shit, they shouldn't be teaching.
My
And
daughter,
it's like, what?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no. I was gonna say, I don't know. I was being, foul. So go for it.
My daughter was really good in math
Mm.
until seventh grade, and she was, well, first of all, we know that she scored 160 on the GATE IQ test. So her math teacher was intimidated by her in seventh grade, and she just lost it. I don't want to do math anymore. My son was valedictorian, a salutatorian.
That's it. Salutatorian.
Yeah, it is valedictorian, and then under them is the salutatorian.
Yeah.
And my son was the salutatorian in his ninth grade graduating class before going into college or into high school. And when I took them to the charter school, to the new charter school, out of the public school system, I I asked uh, on the interview to go in, I said, "Will my kids be allowed to take any level of math they want?" And I was speaking mostly of my son. And the principal said, "That's between your son and the school teacher, the math teacher." And that was enough for me. It was not going to be a principal saying, "You're not old enough."
Hey, I want to thank you guys for this conversation because as we were talking about these topics, one of the thoughts that came to mind was why I love my high school so much. Almost without exception, those teachers had an enthusiasm for the topic, an enthusiasm for telling stories, an enthusiasm for getting to know the students that I rarely have found ever anywhere, not even at Stanford.
That
It's
was
too
the same
big,
for me.
too impersonal.
It was the same for me at Burbank High. We had teachers that were just beyond awesome.
And so, by the way, this June is my high school's 50th. Yeah, Kayla, shut your ears. I'm that old. High school reunion year. And if I get a chance to say anything, that's one of the three or four things I'm going to say. But by the way, if I get a chance to speak, I'm going to see if any of them will take up my invitation to join us here on these weekends.
I always feel like we're asking for like the unicorns.
We
It's
are. We
everybody
are.
everyone I know either doesn't wake up this early or they just don't have the capacity to be able to like speak as deeply as we speak,
But
or
I
they're
like
not
the fact
interested
that
in.
at least some people try. And I know
Yeah,
that I
that's
do
true.
manifest, okay? I manifested you and Jack, Barry for a while, Eric, others who will return, when it's time. Alexander's one of them. David in London is another one. And perhaps Froda, we've had many good conversations with Froda. But I do think that part of my manifestation is also really understanding who doesn't say. And I've raised that question to you guys both before. I know you guys remember. But that's okay with me because, I want people who look, I drive a lot of people away. I know I'm not the person that most textbooks say, this is the kind of person you want to be, polite, genteel, charming, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm not that. But I like to ask questions and I like people who ask questions and I like people who give some thought to those questions and then perhaps offer an answer. People who answer too quickly, I'm wary of. I try not to answer too quickly, but I still have to develop that skill at times.
In any case, it's time for me to leave.
Jack, it actually was remarkable to me that you did stay this long. Normally you leave at 9, but
Yeah.
because I came late,
yeah.
I saw my wife off to she's driving down to San Diego to go on a cruise, and so I helped her pack the car and blah blah blah. So that's why I came late.
Wait, is this a 1 day thing or 3 day thing or a week-long thing or what?
It's a week-long cruise,
Wow.
and it's Norwegian. It's not Carnival. It's not a zoo.
Hmm.
Though there's no way I'd want to get on a boat with 3,000 other people.
Yeah, I understand.
That's just bizarre.
Me too. My mom is on a 20-day cruise. Max wants to go on a cruise. I'm like, hell no. I said, you use your own money to go on a cruise when you're older with your
Hmm.
friends. Otherwise, I might as well, you know,
Yeah.
shoot myself.
I just can't. I can't. I used to watch Love Boat. It was fun, and I actually know a physician on the Love Boat, but not the one on TV. It
Dr.
was,
Tim, right?
huh?
Dr. Tim Berlin?
Timberlin, yes. Um,
Timberland.
and in fact, his Love Boat took the crew of the TV Love Boat on a cruise.
Yeah, to
And
show them what it was really like. Yeah.
yeah,
Love boat.
I used to watch that, but that was so idealized. You
And those cruises are only, what, half an hour, right?
well, and no, they would go, the Love Boat would go to Mexico and stop at Guadalajara and whatever, and people would get off the boat and then come back and blah blah blah. But um, and so they had adventures, but I don't think life on a cruise ship is anything like what they portray on TV.
And they don't show what happens behind the scenes, the crew, how they're treated.
That's also part of the point. And even Tim had to pay for his Wi-Fi. I mean, it's pretty outrageous the way they treated him.
I did not know that. But he gets all that food included as part of the package deal, right?
Well, so I have friends that used to do ballroom dancing, and they found out that they could teach ballroom dancing and go on long cruises for free because they became an attraction.
Mhm.
And there are people who do a cruise and they'll do it around scientific things, or they'll do, a cruise around whatever. But those tend to be a little different than when you've got just 3,000 animals that, and their kids that I, it's just yeah. And if you realize that people in general are assholes, why would you want to be in a closed space with 3,000 of
You don't want to soak
Ah,
in um, a pee-filled jacuzzi.
a swimming pool.
That's a good one, yes.
Ah,
And
that's
then
what I
if
was telling my kids about.
if you look at what Carnival keeps doing, they build these gigantic ships that have water slides and all manner of stuff and skeet shooting and Jesus Christ, they're going out of their way to give you things to do on the boat to keep you from beating up your neighbors, I suppose.
Then you could just swim and pee
Women be
or get
Yeah,
alcohol poisoning.
some of those pictures of those boats are pretty impressive. Like they're even fancier than shopping malls I
I
have
know.
nearby.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
That's the point. And even if you look at what they did in the Titanic, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if I even wanted to consider it, a tiny morsel of my being consider being on a boat, it would just be for the food, if that.
If
that
that.
was where my head went. Yes, my stomach went.
It wasn't at the bar. Yeah, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
went on a 2 or 3 day cruise. I don't remember, but it was so boring. I have never in my life just wanted to like for a vacation to end. I'm
You're
like,
just looking
oh,
forward to the
please.
next meal, right?
Yeah, I ate and then like I went to I don't know some. Oh yeah, I went to some exercise class, and thankfully there was only like 8 of us, like 8 bored people going. Okay, what can I do to
Yeah.
raise my happiness levels? Eat and exercise.
All
Well,
right, kid.
Kayla, since you're a teacher, you could actually offer to teach on some of those cruises. Teach
Mhm.
dancing.
There you go. I got
Yeah.
one. See you tomorrow.
All right,
Okay,
Jack.
bye, Jack.
Bye.
Aloha. Mm. The hope is in the next generation. We got to give them some way to reverse what idiocy this current generation has done.
We need to reconnect them though with the land. You know,
Yeah.
we need to get them off their iPhones and iPads and computers. That's the biggest distractor for this generation.
That's why I wanted to be out here near the trees and the water and the porcupine and the owls and the birds and the
Oh,
fox and the coyotes and the deer that are around here. And the occasional story about the Sasquatch that's been spotted around here.
oh, I know. Max was. I forgot what we were talking about initially, but he's all like, "Do you want to hike the Appalachian?" And I'm like, "No, I want to go to the Appalachian Mountains. They sound scary."
Well, there is a
Yeah,
long, really difficult hiking trail in the Olympic National Park. That's a big undeveloped area here in Washington State.
yeah, I know. I want to go back to the Olympic National Park because now I've discovered other places that we could have gone to. So we went to the tourist places. I didn't realize that, and I forget what they were called because at the time, like I didn't really pay attention. There was
Yeah,
like so much to see. It was so huge.
yeah.
But now that I scroll through TikTok and I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, we went there. We went there. We went to like the
Hmm.
moss forest. We went to, this giant tree. I forgot what it's called. The only thing is we didn't. Oh yeah, we did see a waterfall. But it was like shortly after COVID, so not too many people were there, and so that's why I didn't equate it to anything touristy because I think we were the only tourists in the spot.
I
But
remember
yeah,
when you came up.
yeah, I was like
I remember
when I
how
met you for the
ambitious
first
I thought you
time.
were by going to all these places that were all scattered, so far away from each other.
Oh, I don't have that energy anymore. I just want to chill in one place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Except, you know what I wasn't impressed with? I was not impressed with forks.
Yep.
I
I
think I
remember you said
even
that.
Yeah, I think there was a hotel that we actually got, and then I was like, screw this. Like, let's go back to Seattle
Yep.
because this sucks.
Because even though they named the place, I don't even think the movie was filmed there.
No, it
Was it?
wasn't.
Yeah. So they just named it. So the place doesn't really have any artifacts, I think, from the show, as far as I know. I didn't really watch it.
I think even like the house that they filmed in, I think that might have been in like even another state, like Oregon or
Yeah.
something, or another
Yeah.
part of Washington or something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wait. Speaking of a place where they filmed something, did you ever watch Twin Peaks, though?
No, I have not. Is it
That was
worth it?
actually, yeah, that is a very interesting show. You gotta like David Lynch because it's kind of weird. But if you don't like him, you're not gonna like it. If you did like him, you're gonna love Twin Peaks. And that has a really haunting soundtrack. And I still
Mm.
listen to it when I'm trying to just put something on in the background and just, do whatever I'm doing, but it just keeps going. And it's a really odd plot also. But it was filmed in Washington, so you can actually go visit the place.
Nice.
And the waterfall is actually the waterfall. The hotel is actually the hotel. You
Not
ever
to
heard the
change the
name?
sub.
Yeah, go ahead. Please do.
I I was gonna say not to change the subject, but I really like our topic today, manifestation.
Yes.
I
Yes.
really, really like it. It's very elevating.
I like the stories that you told and Jack told, and I got to tell my story, and that felt good.
Can I tell you what I've been like really kind of thinking of too? Um, it's just
If you
circling back to
must.
like, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just
Is there
kidding. Come
something else
on.
you want to talk
Come on.
about? Is this now the Kayla show? Yeah, you know what? I've been really, really, I just, again, I'm very happy to have this opportunity to just like chill and sit. And I'm glad that under the circumstances, we couldn't afford anything. So it kind of forces me to just like take this time to really try and relax in the comfort of my own home. Um, I've been trying to just like kind of get into the heart of what I really believe in. And what I said to you and Jack earlier about like what I really, really want to do is all those things is to be able to contribute to society and with everything that I've ever learned and want to still continue to learn, that has to do with travel and culture and, really helping humanity and um, empowering youth, empowering women, having a safe place for youth and women and, you know, um, paying it forward somehow too. I'm really trying to, as you say, become, that person in every fiber of my life with my profession, personally. And that's one thing that I do not want to do. I don't want to separate the two. I don't want to say, okay, I'm just going to make money. And then, like, on the weekends, I'll do the fun stuff that I want to do. And, you know, I want to be able to live it so that every day of my life, I'm working towards something that I love. Um, and therefore, every day feels like a vacation, and not like so much so where it's like, oh, all you have to do is relax all day. No, it just feels like life. You know, obviously there are going to be days where I'd like to just relax or like visit a nice clear ocean again, or look into the jungles somewhere and be a place that I've never been and visit another culture. Hopefully that will be through my job, but it would be really nice to start living again on my terms. And so that's been kind of the self discovery that I've been leaning towards, because I hadn't had that feeling since before I.
Well, kudos to you, Kayla, because you're doing it way better than I'm doing, and you're doing a very good job of it.